Hi everyone, Slamphony Jamtano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Hozier EP, Nina Cried Power. This is the newest EP from Irish singer-songwriter Andrew Hozier Byrne, who started turning heads after dropping a surprise mega hit back in 2014 with the track Take Me to Church. A pretty good track that kicked off a debut album that didn't really do all that much for me at the time, as the album pretty much presented a mix of arena folk, some groovy blues rock and pop soul, as well as a lot of hootin' and hollerin' gospel music made incredibly melodramatic with a reverby sheen placed on the group vocals, the keys, the guitars. Honestly, I just didn't really think that much of the full-length album. The instrumental presentation was similarly grand in scope and aesthetic to like some of Sam Smith's more organic tracks. The vocals kind of fell short for me in terms of emotion and range and personality, and the songwriting style just came off as kind of plain underneath the grand layers of vocals, especially with more saccharine moments on the album like Someone New. Now, from what I understand, this guy has a new album on the way soon. This EP is kind of setting the tone for that in a way. Nina Cried Power, this thing I think is pretty much floating the title track as a future hit song, much in the way the Take Me to Church EP did in 2013. And as much as I like this track, I'm just not sure if it will end up making as big a splash as Church. I could end up putting my foot in my mouth over this, but I am going to predict no, merely on the basis that this song is not nearly as plain and formulaic as Take Me to Church. The lyrics aren't as clear and cliched. The instrumental does have some points that get pretty dense and a little overwhelming. However, I do hope Nina Cried Power does well as a song, does well as a single, because I think it's an infinitely better track, personally. There are some super punchy drums, great groove, good, clear, crisp recording, and some great lead vocals too right at the start of this thing. The forlorn, heavy, and ringing piano chords are a nice touch on this track too. Then as the song progresses, we kind of get the usual suspects with Hozier. We get those ghostly, gospel-sized background vocals that start to take shape. As the hook busts in, we get nods to Nina Simone, Billie Holiday, and Mavis Staples, who actually turns up vocally on this track when she goes to back Andrew up on the hook to this thing. It's actually a chilling moment on the song, gorgeous and passionate. A very immense moment on an urgent track that once you read into the lyrics of it, you will pick up most likely a lot of themes of power and injustice and division. The touches of organs on the track are really nice as well. There's a groovy bridge on this thing too. It is a very tight and meticulously assembled cut, and brings a very packed and wonderful 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Andrew takes a much more low-key approach on the following track, NFWMB. The song features a subtle, hypnotic, and ominous instrumental. The atmosphere is colored with drony organ notes, wintry vocal harmonies, some sparkly acoustic guitars. In a lot of ways, the track reminds me of the very cerebral and psychedelic indie folk of the 2000s, but just with greater production value, grander presentation. I also love the subtle heaviness of the song that pops in once the chorus gets going. Feels like a great show of power, but also restraint, because as grand and as thick as the instrumentation feels, it could go a lot louder and a lot harder. I also love the vocal refrain on this track. That whole "nothing's fucking with my baby" refrain I thought was really funny, really sharp, and certainly brought the low-key aggression and darkness of this track home. The song Moment's Silence felt like yet another overwrought piece of blues rock which could have landed on the last album. It's like listening to ZZ Top if they were writing music for bearded Brooklynites as opposed to biker chicks and barflies. Though I will say the song is not quite as drab as some of this project's previous material has been. And the closing track sounds like a mix of a few different things. Most notably, it's kind of like a boneless Father John Misty. And lyrically speaking, the way Andrew writes about love on this track, it's not exactly exciting, thrilling, or inspiring. It's better than Ed Sheeran, but that's not much of a bar to pass. And those are pretty much the 4 tracks of this EP. I loved about half of it. The rest of it I could take or very much leave. And I don't know, with this forthcoming record, I guess maybe I'm anticipating it a little bit, although I just fear that the whole thing is going to be as spotty as what I've just heard here, as spotty as the debut album. Don't get me wrong, there are elements of Hozier's music that I think is really cool. You know, the vocals can be nice, the instrumentation can have a real live, rootsy, and real feel to it, but sometimes the substance of the songs, it's a little uninteresting. The style, the aesthetic, it's kind of, I guess, dime a dozen or not all that unique or original. And not to say that originality is everything. I mean, this guy's music certainly stands out in the current mainstream music landscape, that's for sure, no doubting that. Not a lot of people at the level of popularity that this guy is at with the types of songs that he's writing. But still, having said that, there are quite a few indie folk artists and indie songwriters who I think have very much done what this EP is doing, but in a lot of ways better, for the past 15 years or so. So I guess I'm kind of wondering what exactly is so thrilling about some of the music that I'm hearing on this EP, outside of it somehow reaching a level of popularity and an audience that has most likely not run across a lot of this stuff before. Still, though, that being said, I don't think this was an awful listen. I'm feeling a light to decent 6 on this thing. Transition, have you given this EP a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, music forever.